So since I loaded up that web page and did a view source, what we see here is a bunch of tags. The tags are the things that are showing up in purple in this case. So we see an HTML tag, and we see a closing HTML tag. We see a body tag and a closing body. You know, a closing tag is just the same thing, but it's got a slash in front of it. Not a backslash in this case. So body, center, BR, div. BR stands for break. IMG, as you might guess, stands for image. What do you think center does? It centers the next element that's coming. Nowadays, it's considered poor form to embed formatting stuff straight in your HTML file. And what do I mean by that? You can put your text, colors right in line. You can set your size of your text right in line, with commands right there. But what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to define styles. And you throw styles up at the top of it, and you reference the styles. The styles can even be saved in another file. And the reason you do that is the person who creates the HTML just works on the content. That's especially important to remember if you remember that there could be a program that's generating all of this, that there's no file that looks like this at all, that it's going to pull up some tables. You can be absolutely sure that if you do a search on Amazon and you pull up your your favorite cooker that you're going to have sent to you, that there's not a file that corresponds to that. Instead, it's making database queries, right? And the server software is constructing a stream of bytes to send you that you think is a file, but it's not. Or when I say you think it's a file, the browser does. So what does the browser do with this stuff? What it does is it creates a model in its memory of this stuff called the document object model, the DOM. And so it puts together in a tree structure, which we really haven't talked about, but well, I have this, and it's going to be an image, and I have this, and I have this, and it's going to be text, and I need to do all this in order to display it as an image. You could have a text-based browser, right? It would still load up the document object model, but it wouldn't display images. It might just display links that you could go on and click on to download that image or something like that. So the stuff in the purple are the tags, and then in this case, the stuff in the brown is what's known as an attribute. An attribute is something that modifies the tag. For example, we have an image tag here, but without a source attribute, it doesn't know where the image comes from. It wouldn't display anything. You might just get a little icon or something like that. So the source attribute corresponding to the image tag tells your browser the path that it's going to have to go to open to pull in that image and display it. And here's another tag, style. You'll see this one more and more often, or you already will, This is modern style. This is using CSS formatting, cascading style sheets. It's very primitive. All it has is one thing in it, setting the width of the image. So that way, when we load it up, we want our picture to come from that place, and we want it stretched to fill up the screen. And if they resize the browser, it's up to the browser to resize it appropriately. So every opening tag should have a closing tag. There are a few exceptions, things like break. There's no reason to close a break. Those are called self-closing tags. If you're wondering where I got the HTML PowerPoint that I'm showing y'all, it's under Contents, Notes. That's pretty vaguely titled, isn't it? Because we already had a Notes folder. But there's lecture notes and then there's notes, and that's where the PowerPoints are from. So the internet existed long before the web existed. The web is the structure of HTTP files in the browsers, the clients that pull them in. But the the net existed long before that as a way to trade files back and forth, as a way to log on remotely to other people's machines. And those used other protocols other than HTTP, like FTP for file transfer. But that's why you always see HTTP or HTTPS when you're up here. S just means a secure version of it. When you're typing in something, sophisticated browsers would let you type in other things other than HTTPS up there. You might be able to type in FTP and access a file server in order to download files directly. So your client makes a request, specifies a file, if we look, the file being specified in the case of this primitive one, it doesn't have a file specification. But if there is no file specified, the file name is assumed to be index.html. So it worked the same way. The server, when it gets a request, looks, and if there's no file name specified at all, it just tacks that subscript onto it. Whoopsie. So the server goes and opens that file or generates it, via some server-side programming, and then sends it back. And the client, the browser, then constructs a model of it in its brain. And I keep mentioning that model because that's what JavaScript works on. You're going to make something change its color. It's going to have to go into that document object model, find that element, and change its color. You're going to remove a section, delete something from it, or you're going to insert something into it. Then the JavaScript will go find the document object model, make some calls to it in order to insert that stuff or delete that stuff. That was really important because when the web first was introduced, pages were static. They looked a lot like that, right? There's no interactive stuff. The most that they had is a place where you could type in a field and then a submit button, right? And it was through the introduction of JavaScript that allowed web pages to become dynamic. JavaScript was a scripting language to control the document object model, so that when you clicked a button, it would do an on-click function call, and the on-click function call would go and do something, whether it made another call to the net or whether it changed, some stuff there. Why was it called JavaScript? Just because Java was taking off in popularity. What's the connection between Java and JavaScript? None. Just, it was a cool name. So they stole it. They didn't steal it, but they added the word script to it. It was very similar, and it's not.
Make a portmanteau word of
yeah.
stuff.
So web pages are text files, or as I've said, they may not even be a file. They may be generated completely by the server software containing HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. That's a notation for describing the document structure, what they're calling semantics, and the formatting. And well-constructed web pages are broken up into those two things. You have the document structure, and then in another section, you define all your styles that does the formatting. Now, why do you do that? Because people may have, be viewing these things with different kind of viewers. People with, sight impairment may not need all the fancy formatting, and they may be using a special, browser that strips out a lot of the. Anyways, so you want the programmer to work on the formatting, and then you want your visually gifted designer to work on the makeup of it, the presentation of it. Now, when we're showing this stuff, at first we're just going to be embedding font and colors and things like that directly intermixed with the HTML. So example tags. HTML starts the document. Are there other things that could start the document? Yeah, there's HTML, XML. There are other specifications. The vast majority of documents you download off the web are HTML. Head starts the header of the document. That's as opposed to the body. The body is the stuff that actually is seen in it. The header describes the document. And you can put all your scripts up in the header, right? You don't necessarily want to put your scripts down in the body of it because you're not displaying it. The header should be stuff that is not actually displayed, but you can tuck information about the document into it. If I go to, I don't know, Google. Google is kind of deceptive. That sure is a simple web page. But if we do view page source, whoa, doggy. Alrighty. Okay, yeah.
Maybe not as simple as you thought.
Right. But, that's Google. So, if we look, they do have an HTML tag. Somewhere in here, there'll be a header tag. I didn't spot it, but here's the closing header tag. And then after the header tag will be the body.
Oh, I think all of that is determining what the Google logo looks like.
I can believe it. And so what we see are these, we'll get to that. I don't want to talk about CSS before we talk about HTML. The image tag, the large header. You're going to have smaller headers with H2 and H3, a paragraph of text, and then the closing versions of those. So here's an example, and it's about time to fire up TextPad and actually start typing something. So if you have TextPad available to you, type TextPad. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess I'm going to just follow tradition and call mine April 24, but it's going to be .html. So I'm going to change its save type to .html. Come on.
Where do I go to do that again?
All I did is I went to the search box and I typed text. No. Remind me. Yeah, TextPad. So search box, TXTPAD. Or you could do the same thing by hitting the Windows key and R, which brings up the run box. And you can type in TextPad there. Then you're going to create a document and save it as an HTML file. All right, so what is our file? It's HTML. I'm not going to even put a body in it, right? Excuse me, a header in it. So it's going to say body. I'm going to put a P for paragraph. This is some text. /P /body /HTML. Now, if you forget to close a tag, a browser will probably try to work around that. You know, it's not going to crash the computer but the formatting may be completely off. You know, browsers are used to are programmed to try to handle people sending in absolute garbage and badly formatted data. Alrighty. If you tab stuff over like that, it makes it easier to view, but unlike Python, the tabbing is not necessary. So now that I've got all that, if I click on the little globe up here in the toolbar where it says View in Web Browser, I will see the page that I just made. This is some text. Yep, it worked. Let's put a header above that. So above the angle brace P, the P tag, H1, big header. This is my header, /H1. You can put those all on separate lines, break it out like that if you want to, if you think it makes it easier to see, or you could put it all on the same line. Like that. It ignores, for the most part, spaces. If you felt like it, you could do this. And then when it displays it, it's still going to look good.
Interesting.
It decides how it's going to break your text. There is a symbol for a non-breaking space. If you really did not want it to ever put my and header on separate lines, I'm just going to show this to you, but I don't really care if you remember it. But ampersand NBSP semicolon means non-breaking space. Ampersand means this is a special code. This is a 4-letter description of the code, and then the semicolon marks the end of that code. And non-breaking spaces, you know, I never have call to type in, but there are other ones that are more important. For example, you notice that these angle braces are real important, right? So what if I had to type in a mathematical equation involving a less than sign? Something like this. You know, if A less than B, right? If I display that, it's not going to work because it thinks that this is the beginning of a tag. It seems to have lost it altogether. Did I save it? Is that the problem? Every time you're going to do the view in web browser, hit Control S first. Alright, it actually worked. I am surprised. If it did not work, you would replace that symbol with the HTML equivalent, which is ampersand GT for greater than semicolon. Save it and view it.
I think it's because you put the space after the.
It's because I put the space on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you did the greater than or less than sign without a space, then it doesn't show up.
Then it messes up. Okay. So yeah, we could prove that. If A less than B, right. I'm going to put that on a separate line. It's just not going to look good at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it thinks it opened a tag, and the tag was never closed, right? Because we have that, but nothing ever closed it until we came across that. At which point it goes, okay, the guy messed up, but I know that I'm at the end of the paragraph, and so I'm going to pick up viewing from there if I possibly can. All right, I want to wander around and make sure. Oh, and by the way, if it looks wrong, if you're seeing, this is for the benefit of the recording, if you're seeing it look like the tabs are 8 spaces rather than 4, make sure you do your save as and save it as an HTML file. If you're not seeing the colors, that's why. So HTML files can be created with text editors or with HTML editors, also known as WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Dreamweaver is an extraordinarily popular one. Yeah, you're not going to be able to click the view unless you've done a save. Save as, give it a name of HTML. Every time you want to view it, after that, hit Control S or save, and then try to view it. So we're good? Is it working for you?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we are seeing some good stuff.
By
Yes, ma'am.
a Droby Dean Weaver. A Droby Dean Weaver.
All right, that looks good. That looks good.
So yeah, that's a fancy.
I like Control S for save.
Scary sound.
Planet. Yeah. There we go. And then delete that first line above the if A, just because it's garbage. All right, let's put an image in there. Just go to Google search or something. Look up something. I'm going to look up a puppy. How to be a safe search. Yeah. Alrighty. So, these are cute puppies. I'm going to click on one and then right click and do Save Image As. And save it into the same directory as your HTML file. If you don't remember where your HTML file is, you can go back to TextPad and look up here. So I'm going to need to save mine to that path. So I'm going to right click on the puppy, save as. Now that file name is way too long for me to remember, so I'm just going to call it puppy. And I want it to go in the... It's not looking right. Is that my path? Yep, I guess I never made it a scripts subpath. Okay, puppy.jpg, if that's what it is. If it's a, a PNG or some other format, change the name of it. So, wherever your HTML file is saved, you're going to put puppy in the same directory. All right. So this paragraph, quote P, is going to have an image in it. IMG source equals, quote, puppy.jpg. Now you could code a longer path here. You could put a relative path like ... or whatever, or somewhere in your file structure. Normally it's actually going to be, a web path, right? With a server, HTTP, whatever. Now, if I played my cards right and got it in the right place and I view it, I'm going to see my puppy. All right, that's a large image.
Yeah. It's a very high resolution.
Yeah, that's a monstrously high resolution puppy. So I want to modify that puppy so it only fills the screen. And I don't do that with a tag. I do that with an attribute. So I like sticking my style attributes before the file path, but it doesn't really matter. I could put style here after the source attribute, or I could put it here. But anyway, style is equal to, and now I'm going to enter a CSS, cascading style sheet thing, width, WIDH, excuse me, I misspelled that, WIDTH, colon, 100%. Semicolon, not strictly necessary, but it's nice, end quote. Notice, attributes are specified with the equal sign, but once you go into style, everything is separated by colons, right? It's not width equals 100%, it's width colon 100%. It's just that CSS follows a different formatting. And then if you were going to tack on more than one CSS attribute here, that's what the semicolon is for. Like, I'm going to tack on one more. Border colon 10 px solid yellow. I want a great big yellow box around my puppy. Poor thing. And why did I break into 2 lines? Just so that it'd be easier to see, hopefully. So I'm going to Control S to save it. I'm going to click View in Web Browser. Now I'm not seeing my border around the puppy, but I am seeing it sized appropriately. I may have gotten my style attribute wrong that did that. The border colon 10. Oh, look at that. I put a space between 10 and px. Should not have done that. Now I've got my yellow border around Senor Bow Wow. Are we good, or does anybody need me to come look at their image? So HTML basic, text, images. Well, good news is that we've already covered text and images. There's a tag called alt, that's known also as alt text. That can appear when you hover your cursor over it. The comic, oh gosh, what is it? XKCM. I know that's wrong. XKCD is very famous for its alt text, because if you go and you look at one of the comics and then you hover your mouse over it, it comes up with a little sarcastic comment on it in the alt text. Whatever, you know. This is an incredibly geeky comic strip. The guy who writes this is clearly a genius. So anyways, we could add that alt tag to our image. So before the style, you know, I'm just putting it here because alt equals, quote, puppy, end quote, space. Do you have to space your stuff out like mine? No, you can put it all in the same line. All right, now when I move my cursor over it, it would have been nice if the alt text had actually shown up. It didn't. I don't know why not. I'm not going to spend any more time.
I think that has to be after the styles.
You think it has to be after? All right.
That's my guess.
I can believe that. I'm going to move the alt to the end. No joy. By the way, if you're viewing Chrome, if you're using Chrome, as well as view source, you can do inspect. And you'll see what the document object model looks like built into it. It'll format it all, and you can, like, if you don't like this image, you can right click on it and choose hide element. It'll remove it from the HTML, right? It's not really gone, and if I refreshed it, I'd see it. DOM breakpoints, nothing. Event listeners, nothing. What is an event listener? If you need something to respond, like to a click, then you can register an event listener. That's a very common term used in a lot of programming languages. You have a button, like we did in our GUI, right? Except we didn't register it as an event listener, but we went ahead and created a button, and we gave it a path to a function that would be called when it was clicked. In other languages, that would be called registering an event listener for that button. Bugs me that that didn't work. I don't want to spend more time on
Title
it,
will
though.
do it.
There are all sorts of tags. Some tags are used for screen readers, right? If you're going to make your document, compatible with standards for visually impaired folk, then you're going to want to follow all the standards for that. You're going to need to have all the alt tags and everything else that are part of the standard. So the HTML source should be formatted to increase readability. Every block should start on a new line. The nested blocks should be, they should be indented. Browsers ignore multiple white spaces, so formatting is, quote, harmless. For performance reasons, formatting can be sacrificed. I don't know that that matters a whole lot. If you have a connection that's like transferring, 1 million characters, per second or whatever, it's not going to take that much more time to download something with spaces and without. But back in the old days when you were using, like a 56K modem, then it did take a long time to download something with a lot of spaces. All right, we haven't used anything in the head tag yet. Let's go do that. We're going to put a title on our page. Wrong one. Here we go. So above the body tag, under the HTML tag, head, title tag. This is an awesome web page with a puppy. /title. Now titles used to be a lot more cool when browsers only displayed one tab, right? Where's my title? Okay, well it's way over there. Right, I have 8 billion tabs over, so there's no room for the title. And since most of them just display little tabs anyways, you don't get to see the title anymore unless you just hover your cursor over it, right? And then, okay, great. So who cares about titles anymore? This is a awesome web page with a puppy. Ooh, well, see, it finally resized it and expanded the title a little bit. So that's part of the HTML header. Nothing in there actually changes the page itself. But the title, goes ahead and puts something up on the top of it. And everything between the body tags is, of course, known as the body. Hyperlinked tags. Say you want to link to another page, right? The classic one was the blue text with the underline, and you clicked on it and it went somewhere else. Let's go to the Rose web page. So we're going to make what's known as a href. And the href is going to have an equal because it's part of an attribute. And then it's also going to have a title. So I'm going to go here, and somewhere, I don't care where as long as it's in the body, I'm going to create a new paragraph. And I'm going to put a href, href, equals, and I need to put a path, like http://rows. http://rose.edu. End quote, and we have to give it a title. Something's bugging about that. We don't give it a title. We close the tag and then we type some text here. Click me. And then we have to close the tag. I could break this all up in separate lines like I've been doing before. You won't ever see code formatted like that, but it makes the syntax of it very clear. Right? This is the hypertext reference to where it will go when you click on it, and this is the text name of it. You know, to show up as a blue underline or something unless we do something else to format it differently. And I need to close my paragraph tag. I have an open paragraph tag, I need to close it. So /p after the /a. I'm going to start using spaces to pad things out on my screen. You don't have to, because spaces are ignored. Alrighty, so it says click me up at the top, and if I click it, it goes to rose.edu.
It goes to a not phishing website.
Yeah.
Definitely not a phishing website.
Yeah, URLs are getting weirder and weirder now that they support Unicode characters that are non-text to our eyes. Anyways, you could generate something that looked like if it was displayed, like it said April24.html, but it was something completely different. And then when you went and you loaded up in your browser, it'd go and hit it like a phishing page or something you didn't want to hit. Okay.
Also, you're talking about the giant click me button.
Yeah. Yeah. So text formatting tags. EM stands for emphasis. It'll bold text it. And then there's another one called strong, which will emphasize it supposedly even more. Let's go and add some of that to our, where it says click me. I think me is so important that I'm going to enclose that in strong. So on one side of me, I'm going to type angle brace strong into brace. And after the exclamation point, I need to close that tag. So angle brace /strong. Save it and view it. And so you notice that me is, a little bit bolder. What if you wanted it italicized? Now this is the kind of stuff that's strongly discouraged because this should all be done with cascading style sheets. But we're going to go ahead and do that. Replace this strong, which is an I, standing for italics. And then the closing tag should be /I. There we go. Click me as opposed to clicking someone else.
Oh, the EM also italicizes.
Oh, okay, cool. So I could have made that EM and then /EM, and it will be bold and italicized. As long as that's what the style set up for emphasis supports. But that could be changed. You can, when I keep mentioning cascading style sheets or whatever, that is a way of formatting the document. You could give every tag a different appearance. You could say, I want all my paragraphs to be blue rather than black, and that they all have a specific font. And you could say that if it's supposed to be emphasis, it's going to be bright red or something like that. So tags can have attributes. The attributes are the things with the equal sign. The source is one of the attributes of an image. Alt is alt text. So I bet alt will work on the link, but it sure didn't work on our image. So I'm going to go back to my href tag and add some alt text to it and hope that it works. So here we go. Here's our ahref. Right, I'm going to tack on something either before that href or after it. Maybe before, just to make it a little easier to read. Alt equals please, end quote. Control S to save it, or to view it. It's still not viewing my alt text. I give up. All right. If I view this in Chrome rather than in this browser, oh, that is viewing in Chrome. All righty. I'm going to load up IE, Internet Explorer, paste it on. All right, I want to see if it ever finishes loading. All right. Really? It used to be a real problem that different browsers would show things in a different format. Still not going, but whatever. Okay. And Internet Explorer was infamous for not displaying things the way that other browsers would, that it was not standard compliant. What happened is that Microsoft took Internet Explorer to, a pretty good place and then stopped developing it for about a decade while the standards, increased, and, Mozilla and Chrome and all the other browsers were, adhering to standards, and IE wasn't. But all of their standards, all the stuff that they did were also a little bit different. And you'd have to do all sorts of hacky stuff in the editor or in the code, in your HTML in order to get it to show up the same on the various browsers. And that's why back in the olden days you'd see something that said, best viewed with Firefox or best viewed with IE. What Microsoft wanted was for people to write their page so that it displayed great in IE and then stop. Right. Well, I got it to work in the one that controlled 80% of the marketplace, and then that would convince other people to use IE. But once IE stopped controlling 80% of the marketplace, then they had to actually start competing and bring their web pages back up.
That's why they made Edge.
Yep.
They lost the marketplace.
So header tags, we've talked about that. H1 is the biggest header, H2 is the smaller, H3 is still smaller. Paragraph tags we've been using all along. There's also the div tag. Div tag is for an entire block, and then span just changes a little bit of text. So let's do a div tag that changes the appearance of part of our page. So here, I don't know, around here, underneath this is our text, right? This is some text. This is where I'm going to add my div tag. Div style is equal to, quote, background colon, they said sky blue, so why not? Sky blue end, or semicolon, end quote. End parenthesis, end angle brace. Now by all rights, I should position this over here and I should tab everything over, right? Underneath that. And then I should have a closed div. I am going to put the closed div right here. See, it's a different block. And so it made the background color of that light blue. You can also do span. Span changes it for just some text. Div is an entire block. Span is for, some part of the text inside of a paragraph. So you see this word text here? I'm going to change that so that it looks somehow different. In front of the word text, I'm going to add a span. Space style equals, let's change its background color. Background colon yellow. Semicolon, end quote. End angle brace, and then I have to close that tag. So that's just what I added. The word text is now going to appear with a yellow background like a highlighter. And there you go. That's via the span. So you can change the formatting of some of your text with spans. each span, each div, every item can be given a different ID, which JavaScript can then go and use to control. And also the styles that you define up in the header or in another document can be used to change the appearance of those things. We're going to have to stop soon. This is too much fun. I'm going to tell C++ that they can just go jump in the lake because we're having too much fun. All right, so like we hit slide 23 out of approximately 8 billion. Do we need to know all this stuff? No. I'd like to hit a few more of them next time, but then I want to jump into JavaScript, which is how to control it. And we will go back, and hit a couple of tags individually. If you feel like it, feel free to browse through this. There's some good stuff here. Once we get to CSS, this is a very good section. Slide 96 and so on. How to control the appearance of your document using styles. I don't even want to hit that right now. Okay. So, we'll make a Dropbox for this. We'll upload. Let me scroll up and down for the benefit of the people playing around at home. HTML, head, title to end title, body tag. Here's one paragraph. Here's our header. Here's another paragraph, including the span tag. Here's div, marking out an entire block to give it a fancy background. Another paragraph tag, and I was really sloppy. Notice that. I never closed my paragraph tag, but it worked anyways. Like I said, the browsers try to be lenient in how they display stuff because they know that people are going to make mistakes. Alright, if you look, there's a Dropbox L. Go ahead and give me your HTML file and your puppy or whatever other image you saved. Mail those two things to yourself and then later on open it and feel impressed at having become an HTML guru. Okay, maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. Alrighty. Any questions? Let me, which part?
Well, I want to start with the top part, because sometimes I don't see the title.
If anyone's staying up here much longer, at 8 o'clock, there's a jazz band concert in the choir room of the Computer Break Center. It's free.
Strictly speaking, the tags should all be lowercase. I think it's going to
That's why I'm all dressed up.
Should be in this room tomorrow.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be here in this room.
Same time as this class?
Same time, yeah.
Just in case we needed to ask questions or something.
Exactly, right. Pick a homework problem, I'll lecture on it, we'll look at how to do it, you know, that kind of stuff.